Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's Overcoming People Pleasing and Increasing Profit podcast or show, depending on how you're consuming this. And today's show is going to be super important. I'm going to go into a couple of things. The first one, because there's two rules I'm working with today. The first rule is people pleasing, or people that are dysfunctional in the people pleasing trait are unable to create their dreams or achieve their goals. That's the first rule we're going to be working with. And then we'll go into a second rule, which is probably the most important rule that you can understand as a person that struggles with the people-pleasing trait. So the reason that people pleasers can't achieve their goals and dreams is because they're not, first of all, firmly in touch with what their goals and dreams are. There's already an unconscious bias, not be truthful about what you really, really want. Now, why? Okay. Well, typically, and this should be interesting because we're going to look at this from a number of different avenues. To own what you really, really want means that you're going to have to take actions to get it. And those actions will usually push you up against your fear of rocking the boat with other people. So unconsciously, your desire will be to squash true, authentic, soul-like desires. I'll use that word. So like a really good example of this would be if you're married to someone and as a people pleaser, you've made this unconscious agreement with that person, you know, I'm going to show you these sides of me to get accepted. And they've gone, yes, you're selling me those sides of you, those personas, so I will accept you. And of course, you're going to go, okay, geez, if I change that unconscious agreement by bringing anything else to the table, they're not going to like me and it's going to trigger my fear, my deep fear of abandonment. So your defense strategy to that will be to disown your true and deep desires, your true soul dreams, as an example. And of course, the problem with that, well, there's a multiple of problems. The first problem of that is you will lose passion. You will lose spark because you only have passion and spark when you're fully owning what's deeply meaningful to you. But remember, your unconscious is going, don't own what you're passionate about. Don't own what's deeply meaningful to you because people will reject you for that. You just have a total safety orientation about what you show people. So that's one of the first reasons that we come back to that rule. Rule number one, a people pleaser that's heading towards the dysfunctional side of people pleasing can't achieve their goals and dreams because, first of all, they won't own it. It rocks the boat too much. And just as another example, I'll bring this into a business context. Any people pleasing business owner that I've worked with will tend to disown what they really expect from their team. What they really expect, what they really want their team to do for the business and for them. Because once again, if you really own the standards you want your team to meet, you have to hold them to those standards, and that frightens you. Because again, on the unconscious level, it's pushing up your fear of abandonment. Because if I have to hold them to these standards, that means that I'm going to have to confront them sometimes. I'm going to have to call them on their weaknesses, their inconsistencies, their challenges. I'm going to have to be a mentor to them, but not like a friend as well. Like, you know, you want to play the friend. This is a mentor. You have to be strong about what you want. So you won't. This means you'll have sort of porous boundaries and let people away with things. And finally, with this rule number one, that people that are dysfunctional with a people-pleasing style can't achieve their dreams and goals, is because to to get what you want, to really achieve what you want, first of all, you have to fully own it. And then you're going to go for it. And when you go for it, as someone who has been in the people-pleasing style for a long period of time, you're going to push everyone's buttons around you. So for me, people that have been around me, and I remember I was a chronic people pleaser from the dysfunctional level, and we'll get into what functional means in a second if you're new to this. So everyone around me knows, yeah, Perry goes for what he wants. He's very direct. He's just straight. He's clear about what he's desiring, what his standards are. People that are with me are very clear about who I am, because I'm not playing games with people. Like people pleasers are playing games with people. Again, that game is, I'll just show you this part, because you won't reject me if I just show you this part of me. It's usually the nice parts. By the way, we're going to get into another element of this too, because this is all self-betrayal. And you project your own inner judgment into others. But back on track to rule one. So what happens is, it's for someone like me, I'm not playing a game. I show up as who I am, all parts of me. Because I show up with all parts of me, people know where I stand. So they're not surprised about how I show myself. Now, interesting, and I'll share this with you, because I think that if you're really truly dedicated to overcoming people pleasing, and we can take that deeper, if you're really truly dedicated to being who and what you're here to be, then consistently and constantly you will come to new levels of who you want to show up in the world as. That's what an evolving human being does. And so even for myself, I'm just thinking about this. You can see I'm reflecting at this point. And over the last year, I'm doing it again. I've had inner promptings, and we'll talk about inner promptings in a moment, inner promptings to show up in the world in a different way. And there are parts of me that I've hidden from the world. And now I've been called to show that to people. And again, I will go through the risk of being rejected in honor of showing up in the way that my inner prompting comes. So we come back to that key rule. We're still working with rule one, which is people in the dysfunctional people-pleasing style, they can't achieve their dreams and goals. They just can't. And I said earlier, well, you'll want to disown your dreams and goals. Your dreams and goals will mean that you have to get uncomfortable and change unconscious agreements you have with people, and you're going to perceive that you're going to have to show parts of you that people won't like to achieve those goals and dreams. So you just won't do it. But this leads to what you might call a spiritual frustration, a spiritual, I think the word's malaise, because you're not being true to what's the deepest prompting in you. So as an example, for me, I've been very fortunate to create a lot of my dreams and goals. And I've been very fortunate to create a lot of my dreams and goals. And by the way, I shouldn't just say I'm fortunate. I actually did the work. If you come and work with me, I'm running a workshop soon, only working with 12 people, $49. It's exceptional value. I've done what I teach. So I'm not fortunate. If you did what I teach, you're going to start achieving your dreams and goals. You're going to overcome a people-pleasing pattern. So the spiritual malaise or disconnection comes because we all have inner promptings. And let's just say that you've been selling a part of your persona for 20 years to other people. Oh, this is what I think you should like about me. And they go, yes, I will like you for that. That means that you won't have gone through developmental stages where you are owning more and more of who you are and how you show up in the world. If you don't do that, your spirit dies, which is why you'll feel flat, depressed, not so good about yourself. And in some ways, you're betraying yourself. So I actually go to that now. Because when you've got the people-pleasing trait, and by the way, I say this out of the utmost respect, because compared to most people I ever work with in regards to the people-pleasing trait, I understand the depth and the power of this particular pattern to undermine you. I treat it with a lot of respect. If I work with clients, I treat their nervous systems with a lot of respect. When you start to move differently and start to risk being rejected, that's a very threatening thing. And you don't push someone into doing that too much, just bit by bit by bit, to desensitize, to start to develop the muscle of doing that. But the betrayal works in this way. What you're doing, and then I'll come back to why the deep fear is there, because you may not even know. And I want to take, like a lot of people please beat themselves up. You shouldn't. It's a very deep and powerful pattern. But the betrayal comes because instead of honoring your callings, what's next for you, what you're honoring is safety and protection. And you're honoring safety and protection in regards to getting liked by everyone around you. Okay, everyone around you. And secondly, that's also dangerous from another level, because people pleasers are the most easily controlled of all the profiles, and whether you realize it or not, you're being bombarded at this point in time with all sorts of types of agendas trying to control your decision-making processes. And people pleasers struggle in those situations because they're scared of being rejected by people, tribes, instead of digging deep about how they really feel about things. So the moment you do things for others, and you can rationalize that you're doing it to be nice, but that's not why you're doing it as a people pleaser. You're doing it to stay safe and get protected and get liked, so you don't have to face your abandonment. It's not true love. Really important to understand that. I know that's really ruthless, but it's still the truth. Doesn't mean that you're not a nice person, and it doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity for loving, because if you come into the functional people-pleasing side, you will, because most people pleasers I know are quite sensitive people. Like me, I've shared, I was a very dysfunctional people pleaser. I'm obviously a very straight and direct person now. You can probably tell that, but my whole life's still about sharing and working and helping people. I just don't do that just to be liked. I do that from deep within my being. So the betrayal comes as you actually betray your life path, which brings me back to rule 1, and then we're going to go to rule 2. You can't get your dreams because you betray yourself. You betray your dreams. You betray your soul. You betray what you're here to create, the difference you could make, what you could give your family. I see this a lot with people pleasers. And I know many of you feel guilt about that. Like you could be running a business and your people pleasing is costing you, I don't know, $150,000 a year. Okay, $150,000 a year. And your family's suffering. Right? Because you don't bring enough money to the family, as an example. So this brings me to rule 2. And rule 2 works in this way. And I've worked really closely with people for many years. And for those of you that know me, you know I'm what's called a human profiler. When you work with a normal coach pumped out of some school where logic is developed, they can't read you. They don't understand you on a deep level. Even their relationship and connection with you is just a head-to-head one. As a profiler, I have incredible amounts of empathy. I understand how you operate, what caused your people-pleasing behavior to start. I understand what happened to you as a child that created that, your relationship with the hierarchy structures. So I'm an advantage to anyone that works with me, an amazing advantage. I don't say that egoically, it's just a fact. So this is not just to do with the people-pleasing profile, but the second rule is your people-pleasing won't change. It won't change. This astounds me, to be honest. So my whole life's about been about changing. I'm a completely different person to the person I was programmed to be, because I've done what I teach others to do now. I'm living proof of and living example of that. It's deep work, good work, true work, authentic work. There are so many spruikers out there at the moment, full of rubbish teaching. No idea. It's easy to get in and say you're a coach, say you're a people helper. Do they have the experience? Have they really mined the depths of their own unconscious, as an example? Develop forms of self-mastery or self-actualization, gone beyond their ego structure, which is kind of required if you want to be working with people. So this next thing, and this rule 2, is, again, you won't change. Nothing will change unless you get serious. And so I can extend this and just take this away from the people-pleasing pattern itself. The people pleaser and people in general, like, they know they have these patterns. And I'll quickly run through the age groups of typically how this works. And actually, before I get into that, I'm going to share something with you. Over the next 5 years, we are going to see some very, very rocky times. A lot of people out there want to go to sleep, waiting for things to get back to normal. There ain't any normal. We're in for a fascinating ride over the next little while. And those people that aren't awake to that and what's going on will get whacked. They'll get pushed around and won't have an emotional center. So a centered place to work through what happens. They'll be having their emotions triggered all over the place. That's an aside, but it also comes into what I'm sharing, which is working on self is probably the most important thing that one can do. And the first place that we start to work is to understand our patterns. Well, we have this personality, and our personality acts this way and it acts that way and it does this and it does that. We learn to see it, not be it. And that's the first step of self-mastery, as an example. Then you start to awaken beyond your ego, even if you do that for long enough. And you've got an inner compass. This is what I said before. Your calling starts arising. But what most people do is they know they've got this personality that causes them this problem, like a people-pleasing problem. You understand it, you know it. And you just go on month after month after month doing nothing about it. So nothing can change. Where freedom from that is not that far away if you were serious about it. So I always find that fascinating. People know they've got the pattern but won't do anything to change it. So that's rule 3. Unless you get really, really serious, nothing will change with the people-pleasing behavioral pattern. I want to come back to what I shared before. And again, as I said, like you can hear, I'm a very straight person, and I'm free of my people-pleasing, dysfunctional people-pleasing. I'm now free to share and help people from my heart, not because I'm desiring to be liked. So probably as a place of reference for you, when you start to go past people-pleasing, you move into a place of authentic freedom, where you show up as who you are. When you tend to show up as who you are, when you're going past your personality patterns, you become a more potent and impactful person. And again, you can't be if you're worried about what people think of you, because then you're always watching yourself, going, I can't do that, I can't do that, suppressing certain personas. But as I said before, I really respect, and as an ex-dysfunctional people pleaser, I really understand the power of this pattern. And I don't want you to beat yourself up for the pattern. Like today, I've been a bit straight and ruthless, as you can tell, about the pattern and about why you'll never get your dreams and why you just can't achieve your goals as a people pleaser, and how if you don't do anything about it, you're just going to go the rest of your life and die as a people pleaser, right? Just straight languaging. And I'm proof, and many of the clients that I've worked with are proof that we can overcome people pleasing relatively quickly, to be honest, with the techniques and IP that we use. And by the way, that works in increments, because, you know, after 3 or 4 months of work, you still might feel nervous about speaking your truth to someone. After 6 months, that will decrease. After a year or 2 years, it might disappear completely. We can't time frame that. But remember, the root of this, regardless of what happened in your family upbringing, there are biological and psychological roots to the dysfunctional people-pleasing style. People-pleasing isn't a baby. The baby comes into the world and the baby looks up at the parents and it wants to do everything and anything to get that parent's love. And for a couple of different reasons. First of all, a child needs love energy. Okay, I'll say that again. A child needs love energy. Because when the child comes into the world, it's deeply confronting. And so to have that love energy starts to subdue the fear and the shock in the child's psyche, developing psyche. Then secondly, the child wants love from the parents, because if the parents love the child, that means that they're more likely to get fed and have a roof over their head and not be cold. So deeply rooted in the psychology and the biology, which on that level are the same thing, physiology, that baby comes into the world wanting that and doing what it can to get that, like smile. And is very sensitive to mum and dad's smiles or their grimaces. So typically what happens for the dysfunctional people pleaser is that deep down on the unconscious level, that's still going on. It's a deep fear of not surviving. It's like the child cells are still there in you. And that's why, you know, on some level it's irrational, but it's powerful. That's why I have so much respect for anyone with a people-pleasing style. When we first start out with them, it's a challenge for them because of that itself. And we can start to take this even further. So if you go through the development of the species, you can see that tribes were super important. And again, let's say we're in the hunting and gathering stage, or even earlier, where we're just sort of eating nuts and just living in caves and what have you, and there might be 4 or 5 of us. Well, you don't want to get kicked out of that tribe because, again, you know, you're an adult now, but getting kicked out of that tribe means you're on your own and the animals can eat you up. And it's going to be harder to get the food. So I just wanted to sort of give you an understanding of one of the deep psychological drivers behind the dysfunctional people-pleasing style. Okay, so we'll just recap that. So again, just starting, when you're in a dysfunctional people-pleasing style, you can never achieve your dreams and goals because, one, you disown them. You've got to disown them because you've already made unconscious agreements with people that you're going to be this way. So you're not going to introduce new dreams and goals, because then you have to be a new person taking new actions, and your deep fear of rejection will mean you will suppress, push away goals. You also know that you will downgrade dreams and goals. I'll use an example in the workplace. So in the workplace, you won't really fully own the standards that you want for your team and staff, because that means conflict, and you're going to have to be on top of them and being straight with them. So you'll have poorer standards. You'll let certain people away with it because I don't want to confront them. So again, you can't get your dreams and goals. Secondly, we went into that's a betrayal mechanism, because you're betraying. We are here to create. We are here to fulfill self-actualized versions of ourselves that are superior versions of ourselves. And to do that, we must go past old childish personality patterns. And that's an act of love for ourselves and for the people that we're around. And then we went into how the people-pleasing pattern won't go away. You have to get serious. And I mentioned I'm going to be running a workshop soon. I'm super excited about that. Only working with 12 people. It's $49. Full money-back guarantee. You get all the tools that I use myself, accountability systems, reprogramming systems. Again, only small number of people, so I can work with you. These are safe environments because we all have the people-pleasing profile. Well, I used to have that. I have a functional people-pleaser now, which is I want to serve, I want to help. Don't do it to get liked. So when we work in these workshops, we're working together with, we all know, nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of, because everyone there has the same pattern. And this is an important thing, which is why I always finish off with, you've got to understand that this pattern, it's not your fault you have the pattern. It really isn't. I explained to you the deep psychological driver behind it, biological and psychological driver. And finally, I'm going to finish off with a weird word, and it's called love. One of the great byproducts of going past the people-pleasing pattern is you experience way more love. You'll see this when I explain it this way. You know, I suppose one of the reasons that I have a right to teach this work is I'm really okay with who I am. Meaning, I love who I am. Love's a weird word. I respect who I am. I'm okay with all sides of me. I don't need to be perfect. I am human after all. So because I'm okay with all of me, I show up in the world as all of me. And that is an act of self-love. And other people can't shame me because I'm okay with who I am. Other people can't guilt me because I'm okay with who I am. Now, that could be a narcissistic trait, but it's not, because my family, the people that are close to me, they can shame me. I allow them to shame me. Now, what does that mean? That's a functional shame. So if they think, hey, Perry, that's not a great way to be in the family, I'm going to think about what they say. And I might go, oh, yeah, that wasn't good. I'm really sorry. I apologize. So I would learn from, but I wouldn't beat myself up. And one of the things you'll always notice with the people-pleasing trait is there's no self-love, which is why you go out there to please people to get their self-love. If you get their self-love, you go, okay, I'm safe now. But more than that, you go, look, that must mean I'm okay, important, and valid. This is why I have to bring the love thing up, because this is a betrayal of love. The dysfunctional people pleaser is a betrayal of love itself. Anyway, I hope you got a lot from today. Ask me any questions. Put them down below. I'm actually going to chuck a link to the workshop down below. I'm only working 12 people. So get in if you want to be part of that. If you've got any questions, ask me. If you loved anything I shared in this video, just comment below, and I'll see you next time. Catch ya. And by the way, come and have a chat with me. You can go to the website. You'll see there's a free chat there if you want to have a chat. Not sure what you want to do, but come and have a chat. See ya.